last time in the end I introduced hypothalamus, its parts and nuclei present in the hypothalamus. Today first about the connections of hypothalamus. Connections of hypothalamus. First are the afferents to hypothalamus. Afferents to hypothalamus. So afferents are from amygdala, hippocampus, from sensory pathways, or sensory tracts. Then afferents from the nucleus of tractus solitarius. Afferents from nucleus of tractus solitarius. Afferents from the raphe nucleus. Afferents from the raphe nucleus. Then afferents from locus ceruleus. Afferent from locus ceruleus. Then afferents from the optic chiasma, the visual part. Afferents from the thalamus. And then afferents from the lenticular nucleus. So these are the afferents to the hypothalamus. Now efferents which go from the hypothalamus to other parts of the brain. Efferents to the amygdala, efferents to the hippocampus, efferents to the reticular formation of the midbrain, efferents to the reticular formation of the midbrain, efferents to the nucleus of tractus solitarius, efferents to the nucleus of tractus solitarius. Then efferent to the spinal cord, efferents to the spinal cord, efferents to the thalamus, efferent to the thalamus. And then very important efferent which comes out of the hypothalamus are the hypophyseal tract. Hypophyseal tract. You know, supraoptic nucleus and the paraventricular nucleus, these secrete ADH and oxytocin. So supraoptic nucleus, paraventricular nucleus, these secrete ADH and oxytocin. Right? So these hormones of posterior pituitary are synthesized in the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei. And then these two hormones are transported along the nerve fibers. And these nerve fibers go to the posterior pituitary. In the posterior pituitary, these hormones are stored. Which hormones? ADH and oxytocin. So this is the hypophyseal tract which transports ADH and oxytocin from the hypothalamic nuclei to the posterior pituitary where these are stored. We can say that ADH and oxytocins are the hormones of hypothalamo-neurohypophyseal system. Hypothalamo-neurohypophyseal system, it secretes the hormones ADH and paraventricular nucleus. This was about the effects from the hypothalamus to the other parts. Keep in mind that hypothalamus and anterior pituitary have vascular connection. So this part of the hypothalamus is infundibulum. Right? This part is infundibulum. Here you see the capillary plexus. Now there is releasing and inhibitory hormones from the hypothalamus enter the blood in the capillary plexus, in the infundibulum and tuberosinium, right? And from this capillary plexus, there are hypophyseal portal vessels. These are portal vessels, and to these portal vessels, these releasing and inhibitory hormones, these go to the anterior pituitary. These are the capillaries in the anterior pituitary, right? And this is the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. Hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system, which transports the releasing and inhibitory hormones from the hypothalamus to the anterior pituitary. In the anterior pituitary, the releasing and inhibitory hormones, these control secretion of the anterior pituitary hormone. So these control secretion of the anterior pituitary hormone. This was about the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. And to this, hypothalamus controls the secretions of hormones from anterior pituitary. So this was about the connections of the hypothalamus. Now we come to the functions of the hypothalamus. The first function is that hypothalamus controls autonomic nervous system. It controls autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Stimulation of posterior and lateral hypothalamus. Stimulation of posterior and lateral hypothalamus results into sympathetic responses. Sympathetic responses are produced when we stimulate posterior and lateral hypothalamus. What are these responses? Increased heart rate and blood pressure. Increased heart rate and blood pressure. Pupillary dilatation, sweating, piloerection, right? Secretion of catecholamines from the adrenal medulla. So catecholamines are secreted from the adrenal medulla. These are the sympathetic responses which are produced when we stimulate posterior and lateral hypothalamus. Stimulation of preoptic area of anterior hypothalamus. Stimulation of preoptic area of anterior hypothalamus, it results into parasympathetic responses. Which includes pupillary constriction, decrease heart rate and blood pressure. Decrease heart rate and blood pressure. Salivation. Salivation. Increased gastric secretion. Increased gastric secretion. Increased GIT motility. Increased GIT motility and evacuation of the urinary bladder. Evacuation of the urinary bladder. So these are the parasympathetic responses which are produced when we stimulate the preoptic area of the anterior hypothalamus. The next function is control of the water balance of the body. So water balance of the body is controlled by the hypothalamus. Now how is water balance controlled? It is controlled through control of the water intake, and control of water excretion into the urine, and control of water excretion into the urine. So how is water intake controlled? By the hypothalamus. How is water intake controlled by the hypothalamus? Now in the lateral hypothalamus, there is third center. Third center is located in the lateral hypothalamus. Third center is stimulated by increased osmolarity of the extracellular fluid, increased osmolarity, decreased blood volume, and angiotensin II. I am telling that third center in the lateral hypothalamus is stimulated by hyperosmolarity of the extracellular fluid, hypovolemia or decreased blood volume, and angiotensin II. So these stimulate the third center, and when third center is stimulated, there is increased desire to take water. So increased desire to take water when third center is stimulated. Now in the anterior hypothalamus, there are osmoreceptors, special neurons which are called osmoreceptors, which can detect change in the osmolarity of the extracellular fluid. So ECF osmolarity is checked, sensed by the osmoreceptors present in the hypothalamus. So through third center hypothalamus, it controls the water intake. Now how is water excretion in the urine controlled? From the hypothalamus, ADH is synthesized in the supraoptic nucleus. So in the supraoptic nucleus, there is synthesis of the ADH. And then ADH is transported from the supraoptic nucleus to the pituitary stalk to the posterior pituitary. And from the posterior pituitary, the hormone is released into the blood circulation. And ADH, it acts on the collecting ducts in the kidney to reabsorb water. So ADH causes water reabsorption from the collecting tubules, collecting ducts in the kidney. So ADH controls the water excretion in the urine. Right? So in this way, water balance is maintained by the kidney by controlling the water intake to third center and secreting ADH, which controls which causes reabsorption of water from the collecting ducts in the kidney. The next function is control of food intake or feeding. In the lateral hypothalamus, there is the feeding center, hunger center. So feeding center or hunger center is present in the lateral hypothalamus. Now when feeding center or hunger center is stimulated, there is intense desire to eat. Intense desire to eat when hunger or feeding center is stimulated. Feeding center is under the control of satiety center. Present in the ventromedial nucleus of the hypothalamus. So satiety center is present in the ventromedial nucleus of the hypothalamus. When satiety center is stimulated, feeding center is inhibited and there is satiety. No more eating. So when satiety center is stimulated, there is satiety, there is inhibition of the feeding center, so no more eating. Right? Satiety center, which is in the ventromedial nucleus of hypothalamus, its activity of satiety center depends upon its glucose utilization. Activity of the satiety center depends upon its glucose utilization. You know, insulin is not required in the brain for glucose uptake and glucose utilization. Insulin not required in the brain for glucose uptake and glucose utilization. But cells in the satiety center, these require insulin for glucose utilization. So cells in the satiety center, these require insulin for glucose utilization. And these cells are called glucostat cells. So these are called glucostat cells. So in the satiety center, there are glucostat cells. Their activity depends upon glucose utilization. Right? In uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, there is increased appetite, polyphagia. So increased appetite, polyphagia is a feature in patients of uncontrolled diabetes mellitus. There is hyperglycemia, but there is increased appetite, polyphagia. So in these patients, glucostat cells require insulin for glucose utilization. Insulin is deficient. So glucose is not utilized by the glucostat cells in the satiety center. So when glucose is not utilized, activity of satiety center is depressed. Activity of satiety center is depressed when glucose is not utilized because of the insulin deficiency. And suppression of the activity of the satiety center results into overactivity of the feeding or hunger center. there is overactivity of the feeding or hunger center. So this results into increased appetite or polyphagia, increased appetite or polyphagia in the patients of uncontrolled diabetes mellitus. So this was about the hypothalamic function, the control of feeding or food intake, or control of hunger to feeding center and to the satiety center in the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, especially the mammillary bodies, control various feeding reflexes, control or activate various feeding reflexes such as swallowing and licking of the lips. When food is tasty, you lick your lips. So licking of the lips and swallowing, these are controlled activated by the mammillary bodies in the hypothalamus. Our next function of the hypothalamus is control of uterine contraction and milk ejection. You know, hypothalamus synthesizes oxytocin mainly in the paraventricular nuclei. So in the paraventricular nuclei of the hypothalamus, there is synthesis of the oxytocin. It is transported along nerve fiber to the posterior pituitary, where it is stored, and then the release of oxytocin occurs in response to appropriate stimuli. From the posterior pituitary, there is release of oxytocin in response to appropriate stimuli. Oxytocin causes uterine contraction and helps in the childbirth. So oxytocin causes uterine contraction, causes labor pains, and help in childbirth. Oxytocin also causes milk ejection, milk letdown. The baby suckles the breast of mother. The baby suckles breast of the mother. Impulses are produced from the receptors around the nipple. These impulses go to the hypothalamus, and from the hypothalamus posterior pituitary, there is release of oxytocin into the blood circulation. So release of oxytocin into the blood circulation, and from the blood it circulates in the blood, and it is carried to the breast. In the breast, there are myoepithelial cells. Which surround the duct and alveoli of the breast. This hormone causes contraction of the myoepithelial cells. There is contraction of the myoepithelial cells. When these cells contract, milk is ejected out of the nipples into the baby's mouth. When there is contraction of the myoepithelial cells, milk is squeezed out, expelled out, ejected out from the nipples into baby's mouth. This is the milk letdown or milk ejection. It is carried out by the oxytocin. Now in this milk ejection or milk letdown, there is neuroendocrinal reflex. there is neuroendocrinal reflex or neurohormonal reflex. Baby suckles the breast of the mother. Impulses from the receptors on nipple are conducted along the afferent nerve fibers to the hypothalamus. So afferent part is nervous. And then from the hypothalamus posterior pituitary, release of oxytocin into blood circulation, and from the through the blood, these hormones carried to the myoepithelial cells in the breast. So the efferent part is hormonal. Efferent part is hormonal, that is oxytocin. Right? So this function of the oxytocin, that it causes uterine contraction to help in the childbirth, and help in the milk ejection or milk letdown phenomenon. Next function of the hypothalamus is regulation of the body temperature. Regulation of the body temperature. In the preoptic area, of the hypothalamus, there is temperature regulating center. So in the preoptic area of the hypothalamus, there is temperature regulating center. When body temperature increases, this center in the hypothalamus activates various temperature decreasing mechanisms. So when temperature of the body increases, the temperature regulating center in the hypothalamus, it activates various temperature decreasing mechanisms such as cutaneous vasodilatation, and sweating. So in the skin, blood vessels are dilated and there is sweating. And this will lower down the temperature of the body. When body temperature decreases, temperature regulating center in the hypothalamus activates various temperature increasing mechanisms. So the center in the hypothalamus activate various temperature increasing mechanisms such as cutaneous vasoconstriction, shivering to increase the body temperature. Keep in mind that in the posterior hypothalamus, our shivering center is present. So shivering center is present in the posterior hypothalamus. So keep in mind that hypothalamus regulates the body temperature. Next function is that hypothalamus controls secretion of anterior pituitary hormones. Hypothalamus controls secretion of anterior pituitary hormones through releasing an inhibitory hormones. Hypothalamus secretes various releasing and inhibitory hormones. So these releasing and inhibitory hormones are transported from the hypothalamus to hypophyseal portal vessels to anterior pituitary, where these control the hormone secretion. Now, hypothalamus produces a number of releasing and inhibitory hormones. You see, growth hormone, releasing hormone, growth hormone, releasing hormone. There is also growth hormone, inhibitory hormone, also called somatostatin. Right? So growth hormone, releasing hormone, and there is also growth hormone, inhibitory hormone, which is also called somatostatin. Then, for the gonadotropins, there is gonadotropin releasing hormone. There is gonadotropin releasing hormone, which causes secretion of FSH and LH from the anterior pituitary. And you know, the FSH and LH are called gonadotropins. This is the gonadotropin releasing hormone which controls the secretion of both the FSH and LH. Then there is CRH, corticotropin releasing hormone. Corticotropin releasing hormone. And it causes release of secretion of ACTH. It causes secretion of ACTH from the anterior pituitary. ACTH. And then there is TRH, thyrotropin releasing hormone. TRH or thyrotropin releasing hormone, which controls secretion of TSH from the anterior pituitary. So TSH from the anterior pituitary is controlled by TRH, thyrotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus. For prolactin, there are two hormones, prolactin inhibitory hormone and prolactin releasing hormone, PIH and PRH. So for prolactin, there is prolactin inhibitory hormone and there is prolactin releasing hormone. Now for prolactin, keep in mind, prolactin inhibitory hormone is more important. So for prolactin inhibitory hormone is more important. And keep in mind, prolactin inhibitory hormone is chemically dopamine. That is the prolactin inhibitory hormone. Is chemically dopamine. So these are various releasing and inhibitory hormones which control secretion of hormones from the anterior pituitary. Gonadotropin releasing hormone, growth hormone releasing hormone, and then growth hormone inhibitory hormone, corticotropin releasing hormone, thyrotropin releasing hormone, and then for prolactin inhibitory hormone, more important, and then prolactin releasing hormone, less important for the prolactin secretion. Now these releasing and inhibitory hormones are secreted from various parts of the hypothalamus, including the periventricular zone, arcuate nucleus, and part of the ventromedial nucleus. So periventricular zone, arcuate nucleus, and part of the ventromedial nucleus. So from these parts, these releasing and inhibitory hormones are secreted. And then these go to the portal system, to the anterior pituitary, to control the secretion of the anterior pituitary hormones. The next function of the hypothalamus is control of sleep and wakefulness. Control of sleep and wakefulness. suprachiasmatic nucleus in the anterior hypothalamus. When stimulated, it results into sleep. So we stimulate suprachiasmatic nucleus of the anterior hypothalamus, it results into sleep. And when this nucleus is damaged, there will be alertness or wakefulness. So when this nucleus is damaged, there is wakefulness or alertness. So stimulation of suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus, it results into sleep. And when this nucleus is damaged, the result will be alertness or wakefulness. Stimulation of the hypothalamus. Stimulation of the hypothalamus posterior to mammillary bodies. Posterior to mammillary bodies, it results into alertness or wakefulness. So, stimulation of the hypothalamus posterior to mammillary bodies, it results into wakefulness or alertness. Now we have seen that hypothalamus controls both the sleep as well as the wakefulness or alertness. So this cycle of sleep and wakefulness, it is controlled by the hypothalamus. Controlled by the hypothalamus. So I discussed the functions of the hypothalamus, not all the functions. I discussed the control of the autonomic nervous system, control of the water balance of the body, control of the feeding or hunger, food intake, control of the feeding reflexes, swallowing, licking of lips by the hypothalamus, control of the uterine contraction and milk ejection, milk letdown, control of the body temperature, and then control of the anterior pituitary hormone secretion. And then finally, I told you about the control of sleep and wakefulness by the hypothalamus. So we continue next time.